stop what you are doing right now. Before this video goes any further, make sure you are fully locked in, because what you're about to hear is not a recap, not a headline, and definitely not something you can skim. This is a story that only makes sense if you stay until the very last second. And when it's over, you'll understand why fans can't stop talking, theorizing, and quietly freaking out. So if you're ready, tap the like button to show you're here, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment with the word ready, so we know you're watching all the way through. Trust us, you'll want proof you were here. Now let's begin. It all started quietly, almost invisibly, back in 2016. No flashing lights, no viral clips, just two kids walking into auditions with no idea that their lives were about to be permanently rewired. At that moment, nothing about the future was guaranteed. No one was promising fame, longevity, or cultural impact. What happened next wasn't planned, and that's exactly why it matters. Over the years, the public has watched them grow up on screen. But what most people never stop to think about is what it means to grow up together under that kind of pressure. Cameras everywhere. Expectations everywhere. Childhood stretched thin between scripts, schoolwork, and sets that felt more like alternate realities than workplaces. From the outside, it looked magical. From the inside, it was intense, emotional, and deeply formative. And somewhere in that chaos, a connection formed that didn't follow the usual Hollywood rules. It wasn't transactional. It wasn't convenient. It wasn't performative. It was instinctive, immediate. The kind of bond that doesn't need explanation because it never asked for permission. While other young actors rotated in and out of the industry, chasing projects or drifting apart, these two stayed anchored to something familiar, each other. There's a reason people keep saying their dynamic feels different, and it's not nostalgia. It's history. Real history. The kind built in stolen moments between takes, whispered jokes no one else heard, and long days that felt endless when you're still learning who you are. Imagine being 9 or 10 years old and suddenly spending more time with the cast than your own family. Imagine navigating awkward growth phases, emotional changes, and identity formation while millions of people feel entitled to opinions about who you are becoming. In that environment, trust isn't optional. It's survival. And trust doesn't appear overnight. It's earned through consistency, presence, and shared vulnerability. This is where things get interesting. While fans focused on performances and plot lines, something quieter was happening off camera. A rhythm, a familiarity, a sense of safety that didn't depend on success or approval. When one was overwhelmed, the other understood without asking. When one was unsure, the other grounded them. This wasn't about lines or scenes. This was about growing up side by side, while the rest of the world watched from a distance. Even as years passed and fame intensified, that foundation never cracked. Schedules got busier. Lives got louder. But the connection didn't thin out. If anything, it became more intentional. Not because it had to be, but because it mattered. And here's the part people underestimate. Staying close when life explodes is harder than becoming close in the first place. It requires effort without obligation, choice without pressure. And that's exactly why this story refuses to fade. Because it's not frozen in the past. It's still unfolding. So stay with us, because we're only scratching the surface. In the next part, we're diving deeper into what that shared childhood actually looked like when the cameras stopped rolling, and why those seemingly small moments ended up meaning everything. Don't click away. This is where it really starts. If you're still here, you're already ahead of most people. And this is where things shift from interesting to impossible to ignore. Because while the world saw polished scenes and scripted emotions, their real story was being written in the margins, in the waiting time, in the breaks that didn't feel like breaks. Childhood on a set is not childhood as most people know it. It's fragmented. It's borrowed. It's squeezed into whatever space remains after work is done. And yet, that's exactly where some of the most meaningful memories formed. Between school lessons and wardrobe changes, they found ways to stay kids. Games became rituals. Competition became an outlet. Laughter became a release valve for stress neither of them was old enough to name yet. Those moments weren't glamorous, but they were grounding. They created a sense of normalcy in an environment that was anything but normal. and that normalcy became a shared language, something they could return to whenever the noise got too loud. But it wasn't just each other shaping the experience. Around them were adults who had lived through fame, pressure, and survival in an industry that rarely slows down for anyone. These weren't lectures or dramatic speeches. They were quiet lessons passed along casually, almost accidentally. Tips whispered on set, observations shared without ego, techniques that didn't just improve performances, but taught discipline, awareness, and resilience. Learning how to exist in front of a camera without losing yourself behind it is not something you figure out alone. And when those lessons come from people who genuinely care, they land differently. They stick. Over time, those influences blurred the line between working relationships and something more personal. The adults weren't just co-stars. They were anchors. Proof that longevity was possible. That you could grow, change, and still stay human. Watching that up close leaves an imprint. It shapes how you see relationships, success, and loyalty. And through all of it, one constant remained: the ease they found in each other's presence. As the years went on, something remarkable happened. The effort disappeared. Being together stopped feeling like something that required energy. It became the place where energy returned. Shared looks turned into unspoken conversations. Silence became comfortable. Humor became effortless. That kind of comfort doesn't come from chemistry tests or rehearsals. It comes from time, from knowing someone in every version of themselves. The awkward phases, the confident phases, the uncertain phases, all of it. And then came the moment no one is ever ready for. The realization that something defining is ending. When the final scripts appeared, there was no preparation, no emotional armor. Everyone experienced it together, in real time, page by page, breath by breath. What started light slowly shifted into something heavier, something final. And in that room, the weight of years settled in. Not just the end of a project, but the closing of a chapter that had shaped who they became. The emotions didn't end when the reading stopped. They lingered. They followed them home. They demanded space. And in a gesture that says more than any speech ever could, they showed up with something handmade, thoughtful, personal, a symbol of connection that wasn't about the show, but about the people. That moment wasn't staged. It wasn't for an audience. It was real. And that's why it matters. Because when everything else falls away, what remains is choice. And the choices made here tell a story louder than any headline. Stay with us. In the final part, we're bringing it all together, and what it means now, beyond the cameras, beyond the scripts, beyond the expectations. Don't leave yet. You want to hear how this actually ends. You've made it this far, and that matters, because this is where the full picture finally comes into focus. When something lasts this long, people assume it survives out of habit, familiarity, convenience. But the truth is, longevity only happens when both people keep choosing it. And that's what separates this story from every other one you think you've heard before. As the spotlight intensified and individual paths expanded, it would have been easy to drift, to let time do what time usually does. But instead, something intentional happened. Contact didn't fade. Presence didn't weaken. Life got busier, yes, but the connection adapted instead of breaking. It didn't demand constant attention. It didn't rely on proximity. It existed because it was real. There's a difference between growing alongside someone and growing with someone. One is coincidence. The other is commitment. Over the years, that distinction became clearer. Shared success didn't create distance. It reinforced trust. Shared vulnerability didn't create discomfort. It deepened understanding. And in an industry built on temporary alliances, this kind of consistency stands out. Not because it's loud, but because it's rare. What fans sense isn't imagination. It's recognition. People know when something is genuine, even if they can't articulate why. The ease, the affection, the way interactions don't feel performed. That's not something you fake for nearly a decade. And when life began to shift into more personal territory, that bond didn't stay frozen in the past. It moved forward. It evolved. It took on new meaning. Trust reached a level that most friendships never touch. Not symbolic trust. Real trust. The kind that shows up in decisions that actually matter. decisions about family, about permanence, about who gets to stand beside you when the world isn't watching. That's when it becomes undeniable. This was never just about a show. It was about shared growth under extraordinary circumstances, and the choice to hold on to what mattered when everything else kept changing. So now we want to hear from you. If you felt the weight of the story, don't stay silent. Scroll down and leave a comment saying what surprised you most, or simply drop the word bond if you made it to the end. If you want more deep dives like this, hit the like button so the algorithm knows this is worth pushing, and subscribe to stay with us for what's coming next. And if you really want to keep the conversation alive, share this video with someone who thinks they already know the whole story. Because sometimes the real story is the one that unfolds quietly, over time, right in front of us.